we have a podcast.
Diving deep into all things Texans, both on and off the field. Here's Sean Pendergast and Pro Football Hall of Famer, the General, John McClain. Welcome to Houtopia.
Hey everybody, welcome in. It is the Houtopia Football Podcast. Week 9 is here. We are ready to preview the Texans and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Take a look at some other things going on around the NFL as we head into what should be a great weekend of football. I'm Sean Pendergast, one half of Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610, mornings, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. You can listen on the Audacy app if you so choose, or listen on terrestrial radio. People do that these days as well. And I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, the Hall of Famer. He is our senior columnist at sportsradio610.com, John McClain. John, very, very happy day to you. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great as always, Sean. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. We got week 9 here, John. I can't believe we're halfway through this season already. This will be game number 8 for the Houston Texans. The season's flying by right now.
Texans need to win. They're favored over Tampa. If they lose again, it's going to be a huge disappointment. Lost the last 2 on field goals with no time left. The Buccaneers are reeling with 3 losses in a row, so Texans should win this game.
Yeah, 2.5-point favorite, and you're right, John. This game is, look, the Texans are going to be in a bunch of games that are where the spread is probably 3 or under for the rest of the season, one way or the other. That's just how the season's going to go, which is great progress from the last 2 years when they were routinely double-digit underdogs in almost every game. Not almost every game, but way too many games, double-digit underdogs. So, yeah, this is a big swing. This is a big difference between 3-5 and 4-4 at this stage of the season, especially considering who's on tap in Week 10, a resurgent Cincinnati Bengals team.
Automatic loss. Oh,
that's right. I forgot. Yeah, so they got to win this weekend, John, or they're going to be 3-6 for sure, according to you.
3-6 might get closer to that 6-11 prediction, but they should beat the Buccaneers. They could have beaten Atlanta, they could have beaten Carolina, and they should beat Tampa because they're at home. And it's just amazing how much they've improved. So we're disappointed when they lose instead of just,
Yeah, no, they're playing relevant games, and the scoreboard watching each weekend now is fun because they're right in the mix with all those other teams that are jockeying for position for wild card spots. The division is starting to get a little out of reach here. They do play Jacksonville in Week 12, so who knows? A lot of things can happen between now and then, but we'll worry about Week 12 when we're done with Week 11. Right now, it's Week 9, and we got the Bucs. And John, as always, before every Texans game, we preview it by doing the Pregame Six-Pack, 6 people, players, storylines, position groups, whatever the case, that are going to impact this game on Sunday. Game at noon, by the way, on Sunday. You can hear it on Sports Radio 610. Texans Countdown starts at 9 a.m. That would be me and Seth Payne on Texans Countdown. John, let's get to the Six-Pack, and as always, the honor is yours.
Thank you, Sean. One of the things the Texans have been doing a great job of stopping the run. And they were the worst in the NFL over the last 3 years. They gave up 170 yards last season, 5.1 a carry. Now they're giving up 3.6 a carry. They're giving up 99 yards, and they're 11th. And what's amazing about this, over the last 5 games, they're giving up 91.8 and 3.4 a carry. Over the last 3 games, 76.3 and 2.7. The Bucs don't run the ball well. They're 30th. They average 77.9 yards rushing. So the idea, shut down the run, force Baker Mayfield to pass, get after him like they did Bryce Young. And then something they didn't do in Carolina, they didn't force turnover. Yeah. They got to help the offense. Offense passed and has been struggling. They got to get a couple of turnovers, shorten the field to put the offense in good position. But I think the defensive improvement, and in this game, has got to start with stopping the run again.
Yeah, the quarterbacks are going to probably decide this game, and we'll get into them, I'm sure, as we go through this Six-Pack. But along those lines, John, as poorly as Tampa Bay has been running the football and as well as the Texans have been defending it, my first one is going to be the flip side to that. The Texans running the football against Tampa Bay's defense. And looking at it more from a Texans perspective, as you and I are recording this, Dameon Pierce missed practice on Wednesday with an ankle injury. I don't know what his status was or is for practice today. They may be on the practice field now as you and I are talking. But it sounded like at least some of the rumblings were that he could miss the game on Sunday. John, I'm not terribly disappointed by this. I'm disappointed because I like Dameon Pierce and he's a good football player. No question about that. But I started thinking about, okay, why am I not as upset about Dameon Pierce possibly missing a game for the Texans as I know I would have been this time last year, like super upset. And it's John, because his backup this year is not
Rex Bleeping Burkhead.
Thank you, John. Yes. Yeah. The drop off from Dameon to the next running back is not nearly as stark. Hell, some would argue that there is no drop off between Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary. So my item in the six-pack is, how do these carries get doled out? With or without Dameon Pierce, how do they get doled out? Because even Mike Boone, on the couple times he touched the ball last week, did some good things. But I'm intrigued to see, if there is no Dameon Pierce, what does this offense look like with Devin Singletary probably getting the lion's share of the carries and Mike Boone as the change of pace third down guy? That intrigues me, and I think there's a chance the Texans might actually run the football a little bit better. We'll see, but I'm not nearly as I don't have nearly the agita I would have last year if we were missing Dameon. If you're missing Dameon Pierce last year, there goes your run game completely. Run game's not been great this year, so this shakes it up a little bit, then so be it. Let's see what happens.
I'm guessing that Pierce is going to be out. Singletary will start. Boone will get carries, and this time next week we'll be going, man, I'm glad Dameon Pierce is back. They can't run because their run blocking up front is awful. They lead the league in having a guy in the backfield quicker than anybody in the league, anybody in the NFL. Now they're going to have more changes in their offensive line. Laramie Tunsil could be out with a knee injury. Josh Jones been running first team left tackle. That's scary. Michael Dieter is the center. I don't know when's the last time he started center. It wasn't last season with the Dolphins because he didn't do anything but play special teams. And Elias Sports Bureau sent me an interesting stat yesterday that going back to 1960, C.J. Stroud and Jarrett Patterson, the only rookie combo to start the first 7 games. Those two. But that streak is over because Patterson is out with a fractured fibula and may miss the rest of probably going to miss the rest of the season. So, and we have no idea when Juice Scruggs is coming back from his hamstring injury. So I think they're going to struggle big time to run the ball. Not to mention the Bucs are good against the run, giving up 98 yards and ranking 10th.
Yeah, this Scruggs hamstring, this is like the most debilitating hamstring injury I've ever seen on an athlete. We're going on almost 3 months with a hamstring injury. What are we doing? This is
kind of like last year with Derek Stingley Jr. Missed 9 games with it.
He did, but it was the last 9 games, and that was one of those things. I almost felt like they were, the importance of those 9 games, John. I think it's undebatable. Like those were just, there were throwaway games. But you're right. Stingley's a whole nother. That's a whole.
And those games were important for him.
Yeah, probably. You're right from an experience standpoint. No, you're right about that. All right, what's next?
I've got to go with C.J. Stroud. There's all these stats out there about how his performance has been dwindling over the last 3 or 4 games because teams have figured out what he was doing well. Now Bobby Slowick and Stroud have to figure out how to adjust. It would help if they have a running game, which they don't, even though in the last 4 games their rushing has improved over what it was, but it's still bad. We see it, but I think they're like 25th in rushing now, which is amazing to me. Other teams are having more problems than they are, but it's hard for Stroud to do better when he has no running game. And Bobby Slowick continues to run on first down. There's nothing surprising the defense, putting Stroud in bad situations. At that game in Carolina, Stroud was off target on a lot of passes, more than he has been. And also, it was his worst game when he was blitzed. Todd Bowles is known as a creative blitzer, so I'm guessing he's going to come after Stroud from every angle and try to show him things that he hasn't seen.
John, that's kind of music to my ears, honestly, that they blitz. Well, first of all, they blitz the 3rd most in the league, but they're 31st in QB pressure. So regardless of the fact that they're blitzing, they're not getting home, the Buccaneers are. So they blitz a lot, but they're not that great at getting the quarterback on the ground. That needs to be pointed out. And CJ's had games where he hasn't been sacked with much worse offensive lines than the one he's probably going to be playing, but like talent-wise, worse than the one he's going to be playing behind. I'm kind of assuming Laramie's playing only because he missed Wednesday. He misses Wednesday practice every week. Are you hearing something different about Laramie, John? It sounds like you think he might miss this game, but he missed Wednesday practice the last couple weeks.
He's got a recurring knee issue that bothers him.
Yeah.
It's not going to get better when you're playing.
Right. But as far as CJ goes, well, Tampa Bay's defense blitzes a lot, but isn't good at getting pressure. And CJ's passer rating against the blitz this year so far is 117. Like, he tears up teams that blitz him. I'd much rather see a blitzing team, John, than these teams that they played the last 3 weeks that are just sitting back in these zone shells and making CJ get agita about throwing the ball down the field. So I'm actually okay with playing the Bucs. We'll see. I mean, not every blitz is executed the same. And as you mentioned, Bowles does some exotic stuff out there, but I'm kind of glad that there's a chance he's not seeing the same style of defense that he's seen the last few weeks.
The trend for Stroud is his rating has gone down every week over the last 5 weeks. Yeah. And one of the things, like Carolina didn't blitz a lot, but when they did, he was bad against it, which makes that statistic you just read even more impressive. But he's got to be able to bounce back and have a good game, and a lot of that's up to Bobby Slowick.
Yeah, I'm going to use Bobby Slowick here along those lines, John, in mind. You touched on it. I'll dig into it a little bit deeper, and you saw the same chart I did. We may have even talked about this on the last episode, but this is the first actual game that we're talking about here where changing this trend could be relevant. But the Texans they pass the second least amount, the 31st most they pass on early downs, first and second down, in games when the games are still hanging in the balance. It's not a blowout one way or the other. Win probability is somewhere between 20 and 80%. They pass the ball as much on first or second down as the Cardinals and the Giants and teams like that do. Like, literally, those are the two teams that sandwich the Texans in the rankings. The team quarterback by Josh Dobbs, who just got traded for a bag of chips, and the team quarterback by some combo poo-poo platter of Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, and now I guess Tommy DeVito. And you look at the names of the quarterbacks that are down in that area of the standings for how infrequently they throw on first and second down. It's all bad quarterbacks. The guys up in the top 10 or 12, they're all good quarterbacks. CJ's a good quarterback. He deserves to be passing in that neighborhood, that amount on early down. So Bobby Slowick needs to do more things to help CJ Stroud stay out of bad down and distance situations where those blitzes really become super problematic when it's 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 10, as opposed to 3rd and short. And the run game is still something you can use to attack a defense like Todd Bowles' defense. So this is I've said this a couple times this year, but I'm going to say it again here. This is a Bobby Slowick game. Bobby Slowick needs to change some things that he's been doing in terms of the makeup of his play calling.
One of the things I'd like to see more of, remember early in the game against Carolina when they ran a bootleg, everybody went to the right. Stroud rolled around the left and ran for, I think, 12 yards, and he slid. He didn't get hit. I'd like to see more of that. And once he can do it, that's going to hold players. They used to work so well for Gary Kubiak when he'd make those calls for Matt Schaub. And if Matt Schaub can do it, of course Stroud can do it. But I think we'll see Slowick be a little more creative than he has been, since what he's been doing lately has not worked.
No, I mean, this, John, the way they treat first and second down is very Bill O'Brien-ish, and that's not a compliment at all. So yeah, I'm hopeful of that as well. I'll say one thing too, John, about CJ. If he's going to run those little 12, 13-yard little bootleg runs, he needs to learn how to slide. He dove on his right shoulder to kill the play. Like, that's the shoulder he was playing hurt with earlier this year. Let's learn how to, at least if you're going to roll, stop, drop, and roll, CJ, roll on the left shoulder, not the right shoulder next time.
Take him over to Minute Maid Park and let them show him out.
There you go. What's your last one, John?
My last one is the pass rush, because they shut down the Panthers, limited them to 44 yards rushing. And it's interesting, going back to the Indianapolis game, every game they've allowed fewer yards rushing than the previous game, which means they'd have to limit the Buccaneers to fewer than 44. And one of the reasons they were able to get such great pressure, 6 sacks, 2 more called back because of penalties. Jonathan Grenard should have had 3.5 instead of 2.5. I think they'll shut down the run again. And I think that pass rush will get after Baker Mayfield, who's mobile. And I think you'll see Grenard and Will Anderson Jr. Don't know if Malik Collins can do it again, but if they can get the kind of heat they got on Sunday, they might actually force a couple turnovers. But I'll look for the pass rush to continue, maybe not 6 sacks, but continue to show remarkable improvement from the previous 6 games.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched the Buccaneers game against the Bills on Thursday night. That was the night that we were out at the Yellow Rose Distillery. So if you watched it, John, you probably had to watch it on the replay.
No, I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I went back and watched it because the Texans play the Bucs this weekend. I want to see. Buffalo got a lot of pressure up the middle in the interior. And Buffalo sacked Baker 3 times. They hit him 10 times, and a lot of it came from the defensive interior. So I'm enthusiastic. I'm excited. I think this could be another big game for Malik Collins and maybe Sheldon Rankins too for the Texans.
I got one other thing to add. The Texans are giving up 18.3 points a game. Mm-hmm. That's tied for, I think, 4th. The last 3 years, they gave up 26.7. So that's an improvement of like 8.4 points a game. That's really good. It's just a remarkable stat. And if they could keep that pace, they would have the second fewest points allowed in franchise history to 2011. Wade Phillips and J.J. Watt's first seasons with the franchise.
Total points or average points per game?
Average points per game.
Okay, so that would be the lowest. Yeah, because they play 17 games now. It's hard to break those counting number records like that. Right. Well, that'd be good, man. Yeah, D'Amico's done an amazing job with that defense. No question about it. All right, along those lines, last one, John, for me, and for the 6-pack, the corners, Steven Nelson, and I'm assuming it's going to be Shaquille Griffin starting at corner for the Texans. This will be the best pair of frontline wide receivers that this team will have faced this season. They faced some decent ones, Jacksonville, Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, and you throw Zay Jones in there. That's a nice combination right there. But as far as like the top 2 guys that are going against your top 2 corners, this might be a game where they miss Derek Stingley Jr., quite honestly, because Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are the best pair of wide receiver ones that the Texans will have faced this year. So it's a big game for Shaquille Griffin, big game for Steven Nelson to continue to build on what's been a really good contract year for him. I will have my eyes on the Texans corners. Hopefully that pass rush that you were doling out in the previous bottle of the 6-pack here does them some favors on the back end. And obviously the safeties play into that as well. Jimmy Ward and Jalen Petrie.
They better double Evans and make Godwin or somebody else beat him, because Evans is just fantastic. He's a beast. Last year of his contract. I just can't imagine they're going to let him get away, because if they're not very good now, imagine what they'd be without Evans.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, John, what's your prediction for the game?
I'm picking Texans 20-17.
Okay, I got Texans 24-20. So you and I are pretty much on the same page. We got the Texans winning and covering. Those are the 2 most important things right there. Maybe not even necessarily in that order, depending on how big a degenerate you are.
And we picked you, I don't last week you. Too.
Yeah. No, I said 31-19. I was a little off. I'm due for a bounce back, John. Big bounce back performance in my degenerate gambling. All right. So John and I are both picking a close Texans win. If that's the case, should be a hell of a day out at NRG Stadium. Weather's supposed to be beautiful, so hope to see you guys out there. If you're tailgating, stop by the pregame show. Southeast corner of the stadium, kind of outside Bud Light Plaza, is where you'll find me. You'll find Seth Payne, and at 11:15, you'll find John McClain out there chopping it up with me and Seth prior to the game. John, you want to do some Forreal or Fugazis?
Let's do it.
All right, Forreal or Fugazi. We do this segment on every Thursday episode, the final episode of each week. We do it to lay out some Texans storylines, some NFL storylines, and we dip outside of football from time to time as well. The way the segment works is I read a sentence to John. If John agrees with it, he says it is for real. If John disagrees, he thinks that what I just said is silly, stupid, or false. He says
Fugazi.
Fugazi. It's Italian for counterfeit, fake, or you're stupid, Sean. So let's get to that. Let's start with the Texan ones. John, as we know, C.J. Stroud made some comments on Sunday about the Texans offense needing to be more explosive. Almost, it seemed like kind of questioning play calling possibly with Bobby Slowick. That's how it was taken, at least by some in the media. They asked C.J. about those comments in his Wednesday press conference this week. John, for real or Fugazi, C.J. Stroud was calling out Bobby Slowick.
Fugazi, because he said in the same answer, it didn't have anything to do with the play calls. And of course it did, but I listened. I don't think that's the way he meant it. The problem is when you can't just do something because you want to do it, you got to do it based on the coverage. And if they're playing back, you got to learn to throw in front of him. You got to hit those crossing routes to Nico Collins more than throwing the ball down the field. He's got to throw the ball better, shorter.
John, I like that. I think D'Amico Ryans is creating a culture and an environment where guys are allowed to be honest with stuff like this, where they're, and I'm not saying CJ was calling out Bobby Slug, but I think CJ was pretty unvarnished in his comments. He was pretty raw in his comments compared to what we've seen from other quarterbacks under other head coaches here. I can't imagine Davis Mills saying some of the things CJ has said in some of these press conferences. And so I like it. Bobby Slowick was on Adam Schefter's podcast this week. Like, when was the last time we thought, A, that the organization would let their OC do Adam Schefter's podcast, and B, that they've had an OC who's actually interesting enough where we want to hear what he has to say on Adam Schefter's podcast. I love the change in the overall vibe of this team, not only on the field, but just the way they seem to be handling the forward-facing aspect of the organization, if that makes sense.
We've got a lot of guys doing national shows led by D'Amico.
Yeah, it's been great. I think it's been really, really good. It's been great for content, no doubt about that. John, it looks like Titus Howard is going to start at left guard again this week, at least according to some of the footage that surfaced from the time where the media's allowed to shoot footage at practice this week. Forreal or Fugazi, Titus Howard at left guard is malpractice.
Oh, boy. I'm going to say Fugazi again because they want the best ones on the field. George Fant has played
sucks
pretty
at left
well.
guard, John.
And so then do you bench Titus, get him off the field? Because if you move Titus back to right tackle, then who do you put at left guard? And so I think if your idea is to get the 5 best on the field, you got to have him there. But if your idea is to weaken a position and put somebody else at left guard, they might be actually worse than Titus.
Yeah, I just, I think what we're learning is like we're treating offensive line positions like they're all the same in that respect. Then, you know what I mean? Like, if we're saying we just got to get our best 5 guys out there. Okay, well, you got your 5 most talented offensive linemen out there, but like Titus Howard as a left guard is not the same person as Titus Howard, the right tackle. And
that's
it's like,
the truth.
Yeah, it's bad to me. Oh, well. All right, let's see. Do I have any? Those are my 2 Texan ones. How about this one, John? Tonight, the Titans play the Steelers in Pittsburgh. I'm actually very excited to watch that game tonight, by the way, to get first look at Will Levis, who had a huge week last week for the Titans. So Will Levis is going to be the starting quarterback again. John, if Will Levis stays healthy, Forreal or Fugazi, Ryan Tannehill has started his last game as a Tennessee Titan.
Absolutely. Mike Vrabel says it'll be Ryan Tannehill when he's healthy. Tannehill's done a really good job of helping Levis. And people in Nashville are going crazy. I do 2 shows up there every week. And as I pointed out, didn't Marcus Mariota do that too? Throw 4 touchdowns.
Did you point that out to them, John, when you're on up there?
And they're like, yeah. And I said, see, you got to pump the brakes a little bit. Yeah. Mike Tomlin is not going to let DeAndre Hopkins catch 2 long touchdown passes. Yeah. They just won't. And it was a great debut by Levis, 130 rating. He was tremendous. He should play the rest of the season. They should never see Tannehill again. He's gone after this season. And but the expectations now are so high, and that would just be unfair, especially going against a coach like Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, tonight might be a wake-up call for Will Levis. This, night game, primetime game in Pittsburgh. I'm very, very interested to watch this game.
Me too. But if he does that again, not 4, but say he throws 2 and no interceptions, then everybody's really going to have to take notice.
For sure. Absolutely. And you know what, John? Then week 15 and 17 with the Titans and the Texans get really, really interesting. Those become must-see games later in the season if that's the case, if Will Levis is the real deal.
And we know what's happened when C.J. Stroud goes against the other rookie quarterbacks, got beat by Anthony Richardson, got beat by Bryce Young.
Okay. Well, John, you're just a big spoil sport right now. So why are you reminding me of that? But you're right. They are. He's 0-2. I didn't even think about that. I forgot about Anthony Richardson just in week 2. All right, John, Josh McDaniels fired for the second time in his career, fired partway through his second season as a head coach. Matt Patricia fired, Bill O'Brien fired, Brian Flores fired.
Romeo
John,
Cornell fired.
Romeo Crennel fired. John Forreal or Fugazi, the Patriot way is dead.
Eric Mangini fired.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the Patriot way is dead. That's the Brady way. You look back, Tom Brady made a lot of people look really good.
Mm-hmm.
And if you stretch it, Ziegler just got fired as general manager.
Yeah.
He came, and now Caserio, John Robinson was fired during the season. Last year, Jason Light at Tampa Bay and Nick Caserio with the Texans. They're two of the few who are still working who came out of that organization as general manager. Scott Pioli was the first. He got fired at Kansas City. He's in TV. So the coaches and the GMs who came out of there, in other words, stay away from the Patriot way.
Austin Fort is a Patriot guy too, is he not, John? Didn't he spend
He is.
some time
He was with the Texans twice before he was with the Patriots. But yes, he came out of the Patriots. He's with Arizona. So the odds are in a couple of years, he's going to be fired too.
Well, if he gets fired, then he's a Patriot problem. If he goes on to be successful, he's part of the many, many fruits from the Texans
tree.
Robust tree. Yes, absolutely.
The Charlie Casserly tree.
There you go. There you go. That's right. D'Amico Ryans isn't a Kyle Shanahan fruit from the tree. He's a Charlie Casserly. Charlie Casserly drafted him in 2006.
He sure did.
He gets credit for it. All right, 2 more, John. The Astros are ongoing, or the Astros have an ongoing managerial search. We know that. We've seen some names pop up in the rumor mill. Craig Counsell, a few others. They're undergoing a long search. But John, Forreal or Fugazi, this is really just the Joe Espada Invitational.
Fugazi, I think I'd love to see it be Espada, who's had 6 interviews and hadn't gotten a job. Not as many as Eric Bieniemy. I read today Bieniemy's had 16 interviews. So Espada would be a very popular guy to continue the stability. Dana Brown did a news conference on Wednesday, and I read the stories in the Athletic and MLB.com and in the Chronicle. And all of them said they're going really slow compared to the other teams. Now, maybe slow means they ultimately will go with Joe Espada, who's been their bench coach since Alex Cora left. I know a lot of people would like to see that. Milwaukee Journal says Craig Counsell, who's the best prospect out there, Astros are interested in him, but they haven't interviewed anybody. But if I was taking a spot against the field and Dana Brown to be in the new GM, and Brown will hire, Bagwell will not, and Crane will sign off on it, I'm thinking it's the field over Espada.
Okay, interesting. I mean, for one guy to be favored over everybody else, it would have to be a pretty substantial lead that he has on the pack. And I guess the lead that he does have is they know him already, and then hopefully for his sake, hopefully that's a positive. It seems like he's very well liked in the building over there.
Absolutely.
All right, last one. Yeah, last one, John. Bobby Knight passed away yesterday at the age of 83. Very accomplished, but very controversial. Complicated is a word that has been used quite a bit in the last 24 hours to describe Bobby Knight. John Forreal or Fugazi, Bobby Knight was just misunderstood.
Fugazi, he was a jerk, could be a jerk, and he didn't care who knew it. He hated the media. One of his quotes I remember reading, most of us learn to write for the 7th grade, and then we go on to better things. And there's a great column in the Indianapolis Star written by a longtime sports editor at the Bloomington paper who was really good friends with him, and I read every word. It told me all kind of things about Knight, behind the scenes that he didn't want people to know that he did. It was just outstanding. He was a great coach, flawed personality. He didn't care. If he didn't like something, he told people he didn't like it. He had a terrible temper, but I think history will remember him more for his greatness as a coach than his controversy because of his temper.
Yeah, amazing results. Would not have functioned well in the new era of collegiate athletics, I don't think. I don't think
you would either.
I don't think the transfer portal and NIL would have been up Bobby Knight's alley. Just a guess. All right, John, good stuff. We have got little Texans countdown. It'll be the next time I see you on Sunday morning at 11:15 out by the stadium.
And we'll do our next Houtopia football podcast after the game on Sunday night.
Yes, hopefully victorious. John, I enjoyed it as always.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, good stuff. That's the great John McClain. Of course, big thanks to James Jackson, our producer, who gets this podcast out to you guys in a timely fashion, does a great job, helps with all our clips that go up on social and things like that. James is he's the behind-the-scenes engine that makes this thing go. We appreciate him very, very much. So let me remind you, click that subscribe button wherever it is you're getting your podcast. However it is you're listening to this, you can get it automatically if you just subscribe. That's the easiest thing to do. It helps us. It helps you. We're all in this to help each other, and we're all in this to hopefully see the Texans win some more football games starting on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So for James Jackson and John McClain, I am Sean Pendergast. We are out of time. We will see all of you on Sunday evening following the Texans and the Bucs at NRG Stadium. Week 9 coming up this weekend. Have a great, great weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.